Hello. Let's start with this. Yes, honestly, can't even begin to thank everybody enough for the support. Like you said, like I literally just checked it there. I was waiting and just already hit like 7-8 likes just within a few seconds, just without even asking for it. So obviously, I can't even begin to comprehend the support lately. It's been absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, I think just staying consistent is the only thing, and being confident what you say is useful and correct, or at least correct in aspects, because obviously not every part of analysis can be correct. You are analysing ever-changing instances. Let's just give it a second to fill up a bit more. Type hello in the chat if you're here, just so I know how many people we've got actually watching, and we'll get started about Alvarez in a second. Just type something in the chat just so I know it's working. Obviously, Chelsea sessions, I can see you've typed. Let me just sort this out. Right. Okay, if you got any questions as we go, then just put them in and I will try to get to everybody. What's up, man? What's up? Hello. Hello to you. Big up, bro. Right. So, with the Alvarez news, let's start with that. Let's put them both up there together, even though this won't happen, of course. You cannot field this. Todd Bowley would like this, but we can't. So, first of all, what do you all think of the Alvarez rumours? Would you like him? Would you not like him? What do you think of him as a player? Let's start with that. Let me know. What do you think? Because I have my opinions on him. I think he's very good, but I think he would be very expensive. So you would be putting a hefty fee on him to bring him in. So you'd have to be one of your key signings this summer, right? Probably your most expensive, because even if you look at Olise, that's 60 million, right? So Alvarez will, I would say, cost between 65, 70. I think he's a great player. I do too. So what we're going to speak about with him is the dynamics that we could see. So let me put him in instead of Jackson. And as you can see here, I've got Sesko too. So he's another one that we're going to mention. And again, I am going to mention this in a second. So, obviously, if we start like this, the first thing that it instantly is screaming out, and again, this can be like, this is more to do with the attacking dynamics today. So ignore this section. As we said yesterday on stream, Kukurea could be here, Colwell could be there, Reece could be inverted alongside Enzo. It could be lots of different things, but I've just quickly set it up like this, okay? Don't pay too much attention back here. Look more up here, right? So, Alvarez. Instantly, we're adding a player, and I've just realised someone I don't have on here who's quite important. No, that's the wrong thing, that's fine. There we go. Because I don't have him here, and he is important in this argument, in this discussion, right? So I'll put him there for now. I'll put him up here for now. I do have him there. He's on the left. Didn't see him. Okay. Even easier. Right. So instantly, you've got Alvarez in here. You've got a similar profile, in my opinion, to Nkunku. So if you're going to profile your striker to be like this, you've already got Nkunku, who we spoke about yesterday a lot. He could play him off the left, could play him as an attacking 8, could play him as a striker. So you get similar things with Alvarez in that sense. Box striker in turn, but not box dominant. So not as powerful, not as aerially able. Again, in the air, his actual heading ability is not brilliant. Not great. Not too bad. Sorry. What I mean is he's not as much of a presence as a Sesko or an Osimhen or one of those. So You'd rather have Sesko or Alvarez. This is sort of what I'm getting at. Profiles is the important thing about this. I don't think it necessarily comes down to. What's up, Andrew? Don't think it necessarily comes down to who I prefer, more so as to what profile we need more. And again, I'm going to put the stuff on the table, and then I'm going to sort of ask you what you guys think, right? Because Daniel Knight. So with Alvarez, brilliant ball striker. Let's start with that. Superb ball striker, and again, as much as he doesn't offer you that box threat when you're whipping in these crosses from out wide, as we would be from this area, these are the two that you'd have attacking it. It's not an awful lot of aerial ability, right? But what they do give you, all of these players give you, in fact, which we don't actually have. Obviously, we have Palmer for it now, and Nkunku when he's fit. If you have these sorts of players popping up in these sorts of areas, right? Olise cutting inside, Palmer around the edge of the box. These areas for Alvarez, this area for Nkunku, okay? So you've got 4 players who can hurt people from this area of the pitch, anywhere within that 18 yard. So crosses, as much as they help against low blocks, to have somebody in there to hoik it into, if you had Sesko instead, against low blocks, what you'd often see, Palmer playing off of him, Olise and Nkunku getting into wide areas. Again, against lower blocks, you would see someone like Reese, even Colwell. Obviously not at the same time, but like you'd see these players in these areas to put these sort of half space crosses in, right? So then what you get here is you've got a target, a focal point, somebody to attack. And even if it's not coming off of Sesko, Palmer's there to attack it. If it's coming in from Olise, and Nkunku's there to attack it. So this guy, the presence they offer in the box is more about the gravity that they cause rather than are they going to be the one putting everything in the back of the net? Because obviously some people say that Haaland isn't as good in the air as some like to make out, but he's also 6'4" and people are scared of him. So he, even just by being there, the gravity that he causes and the players that go towards him because of his presence makes space for others, right? Pull that back. Back to Alvarez, right? So that's what you lose if you don't bring in a striker of that ilk or that setting. I rate Alvarez, but just don't think he adds anything we lack. Sesko does, and that I agree with. Who do you prefer? So yeah, for me, who do I prefer? I think Sesko still makes more sense. I think he adds traits we don't already have in the squad, like Nkunku, like Jackson. So let's put all 4 of them here. I'll see again. This is just to speak about them. Alvarez and Nkunku, fairly similar, right? Nkunku, we can't bank on him being fit. But already, as we discussed yesterday, I don't know where Nkunku fits into the team on a regular basis. Will he play up front every week? Maybe, maybe not. Will he play on the left every week? Maybe, maybe not. I think that players like Sterling could come in here, Mudryk. So at what point does Nkunku, like say you bring Alvarez in, do you just forget about Nkunku? And does Alvarez become the main striker? And then you have Sterling, for example, on the left. And then is Nkunku just your Swiss Army knife? Does he come in here some weeks, come in there other weeks, and even come in here other weeks? Right? Again, this is what we spoke about yesterday. If you want to go check that out, there's a long hour stream on that, so I won't go too much into him. My point is Alvarez is similar, okay? And I will actually quickly touch on it because, where is it? This. Hi, Con, hope you're doing well. I just want to ask, what is the difference between Alvarez and Nkunku? Because I don't see that much of a difference. That's why I prefer Sesko, and I agree with that. In terms of profile, like I just said, Alvarez and Nkunku, very similar. I think Alvarez, even then, Nkunku's ball striking is so underrated to the point where it's actually insanely good as well. Where they offer really similar things. I think the thing is Alvarez is younger. He's done it in the Prem, less injury prone from what we've seen. Again, he's played more games. He's more available. So maybe that's what they're looking at. But then that just, for me, that leaves Nkunku a little bit And again, you can't have too many of these players because again, they're so lethal from the edge of the box. They're so lethal in and around the box. They know what they're doing. They're just so technically good that you can make room for them. But I do think Sesko had something we don't already have. Jackson as well, a unique profile player that I want to get minutes because I do think he's very good. I'm going to quickly dot through these messages in the chat before I carry on. We just need to get it right this time with the profile player we bring in. I hope the recruitment team do their due diligence. Yes, again, agreed. I think the profile is more important than the actual player itself at this point. And again, like when I say this about Alvarez, I do think he will be, if he joins, it's a bit of a small circle, but if he joins, I'd be all up for it because I do really rate him as a player. I think he's a superb player and he adds a lot of things to this squad and he does improve you as a squad. Of course he does. He's a brilliant player. He plays for Man City and he does well. He's got really good goal contributions for Man City playing as an 8. He's not even been this out and out striker. He works socks off. That's probably the one thing he does have over Nkunku that somebody asked about earlier. He works a lot harder, I'd say, and he's just in terms of pressing from the front, he's a bit more of a weapon. But yeah, I do agree. The profile is important. If we were to use flying fullbacks, what side would you use as this? The right, definitely. But again, this is if you're going to get Olise, it makes less and less sense. So if you are going to get Olise, Reece or Gusto play here or inverted because these two have got enough of a dynamic to be switching around here like this and making things happen out here. If you don't sign Olise, then there's more of a case to say you can do this. Reece or Gusto, whoever that is. Caicedo goes to there. Where is he? Nkunku comes in here. And then like this. So the right side, more so, would be suited to that because Chilwell can do it. But again, I think you've got better options on that right with James and Gusto. Cucurella is more suited to either the left centre back there or in there on the pivot, inverting. Let me look. We should go for Alvarez only if Maresca believes he can improve Jackson heading ability massively and we don't need a tall striker. Also get the Olise deal done first. Yeah, see, that's another thing that I'm a bit worried about. So let me know what you think about this. If we go and sign... Okay, I'm just going to try to put this back a little bit how it was. If we go and sign Alvarez, we are probably giving them the money to go and beat us to the Olise signing. Who do I think is more important? And I do think Madueke has a future under Maresca. I actually put him in my winners video because I think that Maresca will really like him. But if you can add a talent like this, then you do, and you do it, and that's why City want him because he is that good. So yeah, I agree about getting the Olise deal done first. And Jackson is a nuisance, even though he's not the tallest. Like he's like what 6'1" maybe. But he's just a nuisance of a player. He's a defender's nightmare with his movement, with his persistence, and that level of, like I say, just persistence is the key word for Jackson, isn't it? He's an annoying player to mark because you just know he's not going to give you a minute off. And that in itself is a box presence, you could argue. But I do think obviously a taller aerial threat would benefit us better against low blocks. So that's true. Would be interesting to see Alvarez at Chelsea playing Nkunku and him as a false nines, and then when attacking, Reece James becomes a right wing. Palmer comes inside and creates the box midfield. So yeah, if Nkunku and him played as like false nines, I'm like what you'd more so see. Again, I'm not going to overly change this now, but you'd probably see. Just like imagine that's not Olise. Just look at the front line. You'd see it like this, right? So if it starts like this on paper, I'm assuming what you mean by this is you can do that at times. And you can have them to a bit more switching. Palmer's in here in this pocket who can just drift. Reece providing this width. Sterling, Madrid, whoever out here providing this width. So yeah, that is true. That is doable, and that would work. It's always annoying to try and put it all back. If we were to use fine, we did that one. Would you use this as it lets Nkunku drift centrally? I'd have it where Nkunku starts centrally and Palmer drifts in from the right if you were going to do it, but this is more so if you don't get Olise. Update on Olise, I don't know like extra information, but all I know is that we are interested, and I think he massively improves the team. So if you can go and get him, you go and get him. But I think that United are in for him as well, and I wouldn't be surprised if City are in for him as well. Honestly, man, I'd like it's not annoying at all. Like, don't mind you saying it at all. But I'm the same. Like this, there's levels that I want to take this to. I want to continue to grow and continue to go. But the only way to do it is to just stay consistent and do it every day. There's no other way. There's no shortcut. And just to continue being persistent. And then I've just realised the two number sevens on the pitch, but that's because Olise plays as 7. Let's just put Madrid there for now. Just continue to make the content as long as you enjoy it as well, and make sure you put in the research and stuff to make it worthy. Because like that's like I sort of make sure that I put in. Again, I do analysis and like writing for a job in general. Like I speak to and do analysis for other people, so I do get the time to put in. So when the Maresca news came out, I watched 11 Leicester games and I got a real understanding before I made my Maresca video, so that I prided myself on everything was correct and worthy of that people would want to see, sort of thing, and want to know. So as long as you do that, you'll be there in no time. That's just got to stay consistent with it. Do we limit the potentially of Gusto and Reece by them as a right centre back or midfield? No, I don't think so. A lot of people are saying this. I think Reece and Gusto brilliant in these areas. Of course they are, but I think Reece is literally a player that can play anywhere on the park. He's just that technically good, and I actually think you're going to see more of Gusto if you play him inside. I think he's so good on the ball. I think in the counter press, his athleticism and his build is perfect to be in there. And yes, he's brilliant in this area too, don't get me wrong, but I think you'll see another level of Gusto and how good he can be by inverting. So no, I don't think so. I think you'll still get a very good. Don't get me wrong. Of course, there's an argument to say their absolute best is when they can bomb on and be attacking on this right side. But they're just such good players that you can't limit them to that, in the sense of I think you could do a lot of different things with these players because they are just that good. Who do you prefer? Who's this in regards to? Is this Caicedo and Alvarez, or is this wingers, or what? I can't remember what that was in regards to. Let me know and I'll answer it. Also, we have to look, will City actually sell Alvarez to us after the Palmer deal? They might think of us as a threat for coming season. I think it depends. If they want to sell him, they'll sell him. Like that's what City have done. They did it to Arsenal with Zinchenko and Jesus. They did it to us with Palmer. If they want to sell to raise funds and then replace those funds elsewhere, then you know that's what they'll do. It doesn't matter who they sell to, in my opinion, because my main worry, like I said earlier, is if they sell us Alvarez, they go and get Olise. So if we did end up with Alvarez, Olise goes to City. Again, that's still a ridiculously strong line. I think Madueke will be amazing under Maresca. Even if Olise signs, I think Madueke will be amazing under Maresca. He might not get as many minutes, but I still think he'll be very important. But that's my main worry, obviously, with Olise and Alvarez being linked in that sense. Are they trying to fund? What profile striker do you think we need then, and which player fits that? Again, like Sesko for me makes the most sense of all the options we've got available, just because I think he adds more to the kit. And this is kind of answering your question as well, Daniel. He adds more to the team that we don't already own in an Nkunku or a Jackson than if you had Alvarez. So if you was to just draw up a trait list, for example, and you looked at it as, you weren't looking at it as these players, right? So you've already got these two, and you got these Sesko and Alvarez. If you do this and these three, let's make a box to make it easier to understand, right? Oh. So you've got these players. If you add him in there, and you now look at all of the statistics, and not even statistics, but if you look at the toolkit you've got there, I think you're not adding as much to the squad as if you do this, right? And again, Alvarez, brilliant player. If anything, Alvarez is obviously a better player than Sesko now. That's true, and he's probably more of a guaranteed goal getter next season in the absolute like now present term. But I don't know. I think you can get more for your money with Sesko long term and what you get. And I think there, with those three as striker options, you have such a complete Arsenal. Again, he could go to Arsenal, but a complete Arsenal and toolkit of what you can do. If we can't get Sesko, then I would go, again, Alvarez is an option at that point because I think he's just so good to not go to. My other one that I mentioned, if you haven't watched it already, go watch my video today and go leave it a like. It's nearly 100 likes. So that would be great if everybody that hasn't liked it could go and like it to get it to 100. That would make my last 4 videos all over 100 likes, which would be crazy. Let's just make him number 9. My other one would be Dovbyk. And again, because for that same reason, I think if you add Dovbyk here and these become your options up front, that is giving you a more complete tool set than adding an Alvarez. But again, would I rather Alvarez or Dovbyk if they're the 2 options and Sesko's out the picture? At that point, I'd probably just go for the fact that Alvarez is just quality. Even though I think Dovbyk adds more in this like box analogy. But if you can't pass up an Alvarez if you're not going to get a Sesko. So I think you go for Sesko. If you can't get him, you go for Alvarez. That's how I see that anyway. Now I have to get rid of all these. And again, I really rate Jackson, so I think he has to play a massive part. This is the bit I didn't answer. How about getting Alvarez now and Green Whisper to become the next Sesko? Again, I've watched a bit of Whisper for the academy. I think he's very, very raw, and you just can't bank on what he's going to be next. If you go and get Alvarez, by all means, like that. Once you've done that, Alvarez and Nkunku and Jackson, that is your striker set. You're not going to change that again. So that will be it for the next few years. At that point, you've got what? Datro, Whisper, obviously Broja, but I think it's going to be sold. I don't know if I'm missing anyone. But yeah, there could be an academy boy that comes through that does add that box presence. That in an ideal world, you'd already know that there's an academy kid in there that is just growing and just looking like he's going to be a box monster. Because that's what we've missed from this squad, in my opinion. I said it from the get go. That's why I wanted Osimhen. I think he adds stuff that you just don't get from any other striker, and it's bits that you don't get from these other players as well. Because I think parts of Alvarez's game you get from Palmer, parts of Alvarez's game you get from Jackson, part of it a lot of it you get from Nkunku. And again, this is not shitting on Alvarez. I think he's class, but. What's this? Totally different from what you're talking about, but do you have prediction about who the next academy? Yes, I do, and it's Tyreek George for me. Washington, I did forget about as well. Jimmy Morgan, yeah, but he's a few years away as well, like 3 or 4 at least. Yeah, I think it's Tyreek George for me. I think he's the most talented in that group to break through. Whether positionally it makes sense if Mudryk does kick on, maybe if it ends up being these 2, Sterling, Mudryk, and then George comes in, Sterling ends up leaving next season, Mudryk and George become the options, I'd love that. George is my favourite Tyreek in the academy. So yeah, based on that, like I said, is there anything particularly you want to know about Alvarez? Because for me, I feel like I've touched on everything profile-wise that I wanted to talk about. Alvarez, I would say, is a better ball striker, but again, Sesko is a ridiculously talented ball striker. Alvarez has set pieces in his favour, but again, if you're going to get Olise, he adds that too. And I think you've already added enough set piece options, tossing to get on the end of them. Palmer's a set piece option. Reece, when he starts, is a set piece option. So I think his set pieces get negated a bit more if you do sign Olise. Chelsea needs to get Champions League football next season and win Conference League. That would be ideal, wouldn't it? That would be ideal. If we can win, even if we come 5th and we win the Conference League, that's a good season, in my opinion. So let me check. How's the stream doing? 24 likes. Can we, there's 38 of us watching, can we get it up? Can we aim, I know that there's only 38 watching, but can we try and push it up as close towards 50 likes as possible? Also, if you haven't watched my last video, which was uploaded today, it's about transfer targets, go like that video as well, as it's close to 100. But yeah, that is, again, smashing it. Again, I'm open to questions now. If anybody in the chat wants to ask questions, particularly we'll stick to the attacking sector today, because like I sort of touched on a few things yesterday, and this was mainly about Alvarez. So let's try and stick to the attacking sector for questions. and who you'd like. And also, put in the chat, who would you prefer out of Caicedo, Alvarez? Do you think Alvarez could play on the wing? Could he do it? Yes. But again, my issue becomes, can Nkunku play on the right? Yeah. Can Nkunku play on the left? Yes. Can Nkunku play as the 8? Yes. Can Nkunku play as the striker? Yes. Alvarez, another signing where can he play here? Yes. 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 So it's not a bad thing to have this many players like this, because it just means that there's so many options and you're so hard to predict, because one week we could rock up, and especially if you have a tactically astute manager like Maresca, and you give him a tool set like this, and you say, go work magic, make like you said, make the systems, and they'll give him the players. So he's going to make loads of different again, all within one framework, which is what people got the misunderstanding from, that his framework doesn't change. His framework stays the same, but he makes loads of different solutions within one set of frameworks. The principles are always the same, and the way he sort of sets up, but there's different solutions for each scenario, as he says, like a chess match. So if you give him the tool set to make as many different solutions as possible, this is only going to be a positive. Got problems with Michael Olise because of injuries. And again, this is something that I had problems with. But one, I want Madueke to get a lot of minutes as well. So if Olise is injured, Madueke comes into the team and he gets his chances. Because I think these two, as much as Olise is a much better player now, and again, I still think he's going to be a much better player for the foreseeable. I'm not saying Madueke can even get close to Olise. I'm not even saying that. I'm not saying he can't, but I'm not saying he will. But I don't want Madueke to just be forgotten. So at that point, if Olise is injured, you've got Madueke to play. And if he doesn't play, if he doesn't get injured, then win-win. But as well, some people have said his injuries actually aren't as bad as is made out all the time, because his injury status is, I think, if you look at how many games he was available in each season, it was only really one season where he played mid-20s. And even then, he played over half the games, I'm pretty sure. And they're not always like like he had the 2 repeated hamstring injuries this season, but he got rushed back during one of them. So that could have been stopped if they wasn't so intent on getting him in the team. And Maresca is quite he's quite careful with that. So if Olise was injured, he would just play Madueke. He wouldn't. And again, I think they're good enough to the point where they're not going to rush him just for that. What do you think about Calvin? Not for me. The money you'd have to pay, they wouldn't let him go for cheap for a start. And yeah, he's not at the quality, is he? Like, again, he does, like, one thing you can't deny is he does add that side of the game that Dovbyk does, in the sense of he'll get in the box and he's a presence, but that's not enough. Like, to play for Chelsea, you can't just be the presence. You need to be a presence and then have a bit, which I think Dovbyk does. Which loan player do you think can make the biggest impact? Oh, do you mean this season, or do you mean? Because I think this season coming back, there's probably not many that get straight in the team, right? Like Santos, Angelo probably go back out on loan. Returning, see, that's tough. I don't think many will actually play. I think Santos and Angelo are the two that I'd earmark, because Santos can play these roles. But again, if Lavia's fit, Caicedo's fit, Enzo's fit, Carney's fit, then Santos's minutes are still few and far between. And again, if Madueke and Olise, if Olise is signed, Angelo probably will go out on loan. So let's say Santos for now, just because if Olise signs, Angelo would go out on loan. But I do like Angelo as well. And again, he's a tough one. He's probably one that will be sold for profit if possible, because especially if you're looking at Olise, that's sort of where it looks. And like you say, where is it here? Pires and Esteval will be more likely to go on loan, one to break into the team. Who do I think? See, for me, Pires is a 10. So if you're talking about on the right, then Esteval on the right, Pires is more of a 10. Pires, yeah. I think they can coexist quite easily. I think they both go on loans. I know that it's sort of been said that they might not both go on loan, but I would be surprised if they are given enough minutes to warrant staying at the club straight away. Like, even if it's just one, like a 6-month loan for when Pires turns 18, he gets a 6-month loan, then he comes and joins next season. It's tough, but I think like they're too good at talents. Like you don't miss out on them. You give them pathways, and you get out their way because they are just that good. So let's see how they do and how they progress. If we miss out on Olise, why go for Alvarez? Too similar to Nkunku. I'd rather, yeah, and I agree. I agree. If if it means that you miss out on Olise, just don't go for Alvarez. Go for Olise over him. If you can get both, again, I still think that leaves you slightly short in terms of what you've got to throw into the box against low blocks. But this is too good to miss up on. If this was our team going into the season, let's just say Nkunku plays on the left, just for to get him in the team in this sense. Say we go into the season with this team. Let me know in the chat. Are you happy? Surely, or maybe, well, it won't be Petrovic, would it? It'll be Sanchez, which is another thing I didn't change. So we'll do that. Due to the news, we've heard that you want Sanchez in goal. So would you be happy with this? Because I probably would. Probably wouldn't mind it. Again, I think there's better. I think a few defensive signings are needed. But again, if you keep Chalobah, do you need to go get a right centre back? Are you more bothered about the left back, left centre back role? Again, not to remove Colwell, but as competition and as rotation, so that you don't have to start tossing every week. Things change because it says here about Calafiori. Again, go watch my latest video, the one from today, touching on the defensive positions. It's like a transfer targets video because I'm not going to touch on the defensive side of things in this live stream because I'm more so touching on the attacking because this is an Alvarez stream. But I really like Calafiori. Put it out there. He's my favourite choice from that group of players. I've already answered that. What do you think about Calvin giving us the 5 of Haaland? Yeah, I sort of said what I think about him. Was it you that asked? Yeah, it was. He offers like substance and just dominance aerially, but that's about it. I don't think he's got enough about him to play for Chelsea. Who do you think will be the next signing? I think it will be. It's tough to say. I think it will be him, but I think the one that we're trying to get done quicker and could happen quicker is Olise. I would say. With Connor likely to be sold, who will get the best chance of minutes? Santos or Caicedo or Carney? Yeah, so Carney if he stays fit, because Connor would have played as one of the eights. He wouldn't have played as one of the like lone six, like Enzo will, or maybe as Lavia or Caicedo could. Connor would have been either here or here, right? So it would be probably Caicedo, just because he's a bit different. Santos, I think, is a better player, by the way. Like if you ask me which of the two do I rate higher, it's Santos. Which one do I think would get more minutes next season? Probably Caicedo, just due to the role he can play in here. But Carney's the answer, and you put it, if he doesn't get injured, Carney becomes very prevalent in this team as one of the eights, at least rotationally. Not a starter straight away, but and like maybe not even the whole season, but he'll get good minutes. Early signs suggest Gusto and Chilwell being conventional wingbacks may not suit Maresca's style. Yeah, and again, for me, Gusto can play this role as good, if not slightly better, than he can play this role. And again, people don't know that yet. People haven't seen it. And again, like part of it's guesswork with his profile, and part of it is analysing the tool set he has and how good he is as a player. I think he's far technically superior to a lot of players that play in this role in the middle of the park. He is brilliant in the counter press. He's athletic. He'd be perfect for in there. So yes, Chilwell. I think Chilwell ends up on the fringes. I think Sanchez is not good enough. I don't either long term, but I think if you're going to address other areas of the pitch, I think I'm happy to stick with Sanchez one more year if it means that you sort of fix other areas. Why do I want Cucurella inverting instead of Reece? I don't. This is just how I set it up. I'm not really touching on the defense today. Again, if you watch my Maresca video, I have Reece inverting from the right instead in one of the views. And in my transfer target video, I even speak about how the left centre back's more likely to be the left back coming in here. So Reece would be alongside Enzo. But the one thing to actually say about that is I think it depends on this pivot, right? So Cucurella is very good in this role. Reece is very good in this role. So if you don't go and sign, say, a Calafiori who could play in here, then maybe you see this. And again, like this player is seen as the more boring part of the pivot. So Enzo's the controller in here. This player is more high IQ, ready to pounce from here. He's playing little bounce passes to Enzo so that you can sort of get these little combinations where it goes. Let's draw some lines. Tosin breaks the line into here, bounce pass into here. Enzo's then got free reign to pick these passes. Bit of a funny arrow, but this is the sort of thing we want to see. So he's the more boring. This is the bounce pass player, essentially. He's there to facilitate for Enzo. Reece is too good to be a facilitator, but then at that point, you could switch roles on and off, so you're harder to mark. Because if you did have it like this, Tosin wouldn't play. Just ignore the back three. I'm just doing it so I can show Enzo alongside Reece. Again, this could become this because James has that ability too. But also, and more commonly probably, would be this because Enzo's passing range is just ridiculous, and I think that's how you're going to get the best out of him. I'm just going to do this for now. Put him there, put Fafana there, because this is how I've sort of had it on paper lately. Any chance for stutter or whisper? Yeah, sure. Not this season, but long term, sure. I don't think that, again, it depends who's signed. Obviously, if you'd have signed Osimhen and then you had Jackson in the wings, probably not. But yeah, there's nothing to say in the future that a striker can't come through the ranks and challenge. Depends how good they are, doesn't it? And again, if you sign Sesko, maybe that blocks a few pathways. Alvarez blocks a few pathways. If you sign a Dovbyk, for example, which is sort of why if you can't get one of these Sesko types, then I would go there because I don't think he blocks anyone long term. I think he fills a role, but I don't think he's so out of this world that he blocks people. No worries. I didn't really touch on the defense today. Go watch the last video. I literally uploaded it today. It touches on all the transfer targets, every position I think we should target, players for each position I would pick, and my number one choice is for each position. So go check that out. Leave a like on that. That would be really helpful as well. But yeah, I'm not going to touch on the defence as much today because I'm trying to keep this to a striker-based stream just because that's what I titled it and that's how people will find it. Mainly to talk about Alvarez. I think that Mudryk would be more suited to the touchline winger on the I think as we go, I said this on yesterday's stream, I think, like I said in my other video, I think as the season goes on, don't be surprised that that becomes Mudryk's role, but I think it will take time for Mudryk to tactically adapt and Maresca to trust him. But as soon as he does, I think he can lock that left side down. How similar is Sesko and Dovbyk? I felt he was more clinical than Jackson, but is he as clinical as Sesko? He's more clinical than Jackson, definitely. Sesko's a tough one, right? Because he doesn't necessarily start every game. Or at least he did towards the end of the season, but he's got like a plus 0.24 over his XG. So he does like very highly outscore his XG. He's got clinical like genes in that sense. Like he does finish at a high rate. I don't know exactly Dovbyk's numbers, but Dovbyk is clinical. And again, like my main thing with them, Sesko's actually even more of an athletic freak than Dovbyk. But Dovbyk is like a bully type. He's a target man in that sense, but he's also got the ability when he does get the ball with his back to goal in the box to shift and get shot away. Sesko's got everything. Sesko's way more complete, younger, better ball striker. Like again, he's got more untapped potential in pretty much every department. Dovbyk is I think he's just a clever move if you can't get one of these types. I need to keep remembering to put Alvarez back in because he is the focal point of what we're talking about. Don't know what that's in regard to. I'm assuming, was that to do with... No, was you the one who asked about Cam Phillips? Not Cam Phillips. Calvert-Lewin? Can't remember. Top 3 must signings and why? Again, I would like it if you checked out the other video for this, just because I don't want to spoil it, because I did upload it today, so I won't go into exacts. But if you've watched my other content, I have sort of said it in that as well. But I don't want to say it on stream because I did upload a whole video about it today. And I don't want to talk about it today. Like maybe on like the next stream I'll obviously speak about that in more detail. But whilst the video is out, I do want it to leave it to that. What about Caicedo? Well, yeah, and again, we were just speaking about this. Does he maybe stay it and someone else? No, Carney won't get loan. Carney is better as an 8 in this system than Caicedo. If you gave Maresca the chance last year to have Carney at Leicester instead of Caicedo, Carney would have started every game, whereas Caicedo was benched quite a lot. But Caicedo will get game time, I think, in absence of someone like Carney through injury. So like I was saying earlier, I think more so than Santos, even though I rate Santos higher, Caicedo is more likely to get minutes. Alvarez is better than who? Sesko. Again, as a player right now, don't disagree. But profile-wise, does he fit more than Sesko? And does he add more than Sesko? Possibly not. Which goalie would I suggest signing again? Check out the video I uploaded today. I'm not going to go over it in this one. I did mention a few names in that video that I uploaded today, but I don't think goalie is my main priority. As much as some people want that to be, I would target other areas first. Only one who feels bad for Jackson. Very good first season in the Prem, but since Chelsea linked to these strikers, his performance has been forgotten. I'm somebody as well that I don't want him to be forgotten. Whether it's here as a striker playing minutes or playing off the left, I want him to be hugely involved this season. So yes, definitely don't forget about Jackson, and I hope that the board have that in mind too, because he had a brilliant first season. I thought he was really good, and even like if he improved, if anything, towards the end of the season, like he was putting in some top performances at the end. I really like Jackson, and again, he was actually really good for Senegal today. He got an assist, I'm pretty sure. Coming down off the left, I think he was playing up front, but went out wide, picked up the ball, came down, put a ball across the box, got an assist. So he's got a lot to like about him. Yeah, honestly, I love Alvarez, but he has both a similar profile and level to Nkunku, and I think that Maresca centre forward suits Nkunku like a glove. Therefore, I think yes, and completely correct. Everything you've said is correct there. Like they are more or less the same player. They've got obviously there's differences, but they offer similar abilities, and you're going to go and have to pay another 70 million for Alvarez. The big thing, I guess, is can you keep Nkunku fit? If so, yes, he does suit that role perfectly. I agree. And yeah, that's the thing. Like that's sort of where I lie with it. I really rate Alvarez, and I do think he's really, really good. But I do think you're slightly overpaying for a player that you probably already have the profile of. But I would love it if he did join, because I do think he is just class. So it's so hard to speak about it like that, because I don't want to overdo the fact that because I do want him. I would want him, but I would pick Sesko ahead. Do you think Maresca will rate Jackson? I personally think he's got a great player. He's a great player. Got way too much criticism last season. Yes, and again, I think you may have typed that just as I was talking about him, so I won't go much back into it. But yeah, I think he will rate Jackson, and two, I think he's a great player as well. And I think if anything, Jackson takes a jump next season. So again, whether he's playing off the left or up front, he has to play a big role. And we've got more games next season with the Conference League, so that's another thing to take into account. Either way, we're going to sign a striker, but either way, Jackson will still get a lot of minutes. And I wouldn't even be surprised if Sesko joins, if Jackson starts the season as the striker ahead of Sesko, even though Sesko would be the money move to become the starting centre forward, just because of timings and just to see how Jackson having a whole season to integrate. We'll see. I think Sesko would be better than Alvarez just because he's a different pro. Yeah, and I agree. Yeah, I agree with all that as well. The players who play on the right wing are all left-footed. Aren't Olise and Palmer similar? Yes, they are. But I'm assuming you weren't in yesterday's stream by that, because this becomes possible. So something Palmer did for England the other day with Bowen as well is when you've got this player, this number 8, and they can hold width, and Olise did play as a 10, and he's actually been playing basically, imagine this is Caicedo. They've been playing like this, like inside forwards, right? So Olise is used to occupying these spaces. So if Palmer makes a run, or if for Olise's pinning the width, for example, Palmer can then replace, and then at different points in the game, Palmer can hold the width, Olise can come inside, and they can switch. And that is a dangerous dynamic. If you have these two working together, and they've both got that deadly left foot cutting inside, they can both shoot on the left foot, they can both put passes into the box, little looped passes into the back post on their left foot, so little outswingers or in-swingers. Then yeah, this is a dangerous dynamic. I think if you get these two in the same team, good chance that you beat a lot of teams, the low block teams especially as well, because I think you've got two massively important. And again, Olise, don't underestimate his set piece importance too. So yeah, they are similar. They have similar traits. Olise a bit more 1v1 dynamic down the wing. Olise more of a right winger. Palmer more of a 10, but they can interchange and do each other's job as well. So that's a scarily good dynamic. Tossing better as a right centre back or central centre back. Central centre back, definitely. The height, the experience, the protection of these guys defending his channel for him. And he's a bit more of a leader. So yeah, definitely central centre back. That just boosted my optimism. Yeah, literally. Palmer and Olise for the win. 100% dangerous duo. Mark it now. These two play together next season. Could be one of the most devastating duos in the league. And that's another thing to touch on, actually, that we haven't touched on already. Imagine that duo. Best friends on international duty. Enzo picking out the runs for Alvarez over the top. How do we feel about that? That's another reason I would kind of like it, just from a selfish point of view. I love Enzo, and I think them two being together would be good boost for his confidence, good for Alvarez, and it would just be like, it would bring good vibes, I think. Yes, because if we didn't have Nkunku, I would take Alvarez in a heartbeat. But yeah, Nkunku needs to start, and by Alvarez coming in, I don't see where else Nkunku starts. And in your opinion, he has to start. Yeah, and again, this is why I think Nkunku, I do still think will be, no matter who we sign, no matter what happens, I think he will literally, you'll see him in on the left, you'll see him up front, and you'll see him in the 8. I think at the very minimum, you'll see him in those 3 positions over the entire season. I think you'll see all 3. So yeah, Dovbyk, Mudryk, our Ukrainian teammate. Yeah, and again, and perfect to mention in that sense, Mudryk to Dovbyk. Again, I don't think they're not like a lethal duo. Don't get me wrong, but Mudryk attacking that byline like the winger's supposed to, putting in those crosses, and having somebody like Dovbyk to aim at, who is more of a target man than a Jackson. Somebody's going to get on the end of it. That's a dynamic that could definitely work very well as well. I think Enzo and Alvarez had a good goal, assist possibility in the World Cup final. I can't remember. I think pretty much everything from that final to me, I just think about the Messi moments. That's pretty much all I think about when I think about that. Oh, and the Mbappe, like the late drama of the whole Mbappe and then Martinez saving the Moani shot, things like that. I know Man City don't want to sell, but what's your opinion on the right price? My price would be between 60 and 70 on being the right price, but I agree. I think 75 to 80 is more likely what they'd ask for. Don't you think we lack aerial threat? Yeah, I do. Definitely, and that's my biggest drawback with Alvarez, and that's why I prefer I do prefer Sesko, and that's why I'm probably edging towards Dovbyk instead of Alvarez. But it's not. If you only gave me those 2 choices, I probably would just take Alvarez because I just think he's a ridiculously good player, levels above Dovbyk. But Dovbyk does offer something we don't have, and I think that is important to speak about. The fact that you've just said that as well, the aerial threat, I think it isn't a viable option because against low blocks, teams will frustrate you. And if you have to find a different route to goal, it's important to have that. And if you've got Alvarez and your sub on the bench is Jackson, he's not offering much different, or Nkunku's on the bench, they're offering pretty much the same thing. It's a different name and it's a different problem, and they'll make different runs, etc. But they're not offering that different size, that different type of finish that they're going to give you coming in off that cross at the back post. And their movement's good in the box, and I'm not saying that it wouldn't work at all, but that would be the only thing that worries me that we lack. I don't think we'd be addressing the lack of aerial threat in the squad. What I love about the squad is some of the friendships you see. Everyone seems to be happy for each other. Alvarez would just add to that. Yeah, the vibes are brilliant, and that's something I give Pochettino a lot of credit for. I do actually think that that he did a good job at getting everybody into that sort of that molding phase of integrating the team. I think everybody's on a really good level in that sense. Hopefully Maresca can come in and work off of that and things don't spiral downwards, because I think Poch has done a good job in that sense of getting it to where it's at. But tactically now we can actually take a step forwards. Is Gyökeres worth considering? I love Gyökeres. I spoke about him a bit yesterday, but no, I don't think so. Not for the money, and I think Jackson is a similar profile to Gyökeres. I think you can, if I'd just stick with Jackson. If Gyökeres was your main target, just give Jackson those minutes and stick with him, and he will become that. He can become that. Obviously, Gyökeres has been more clinical, but Jackson needs time to perfect that composure in front of goal and to bulk up his upper body. They're the two things I think Jackson needs to do most to become more of a Gyökeres striker. But I think everything else, channel running, ability on the ball, dribbling, progressive carries, all things that he offers in abundance. I know it's not really put in the stream, but do you think the system will change against Arsenal and City, or do you reckon he'll persist with high possession? I think away from home against City and Arsenal to begin with, whilst we're not considered like as strong a team as them, you could definitely see a world in which only one of these two are playing out here. And I've not even got him here, but Lavia. You could maybe see this, because then you can play these two deeper on purpose and they are there to overload. And again, these become your like threats on the break. You could even do that at points. It's not out of the question. So yeah, I do think that you could see some changes, and it's important to note that Leicester did actually have points last season where they had less of the ball. They had less of the ball against a few teams. I can't remember exactly who I watched where they did have less of the ball, but yes, it's an option, and they will do it. Maresca's not so he wants when you get the ball back, he wants to keep it. He won't then play. He won't play counter attacking football, but he won't go so like if City are keeping the ball in their own half, he won't purposely over engage just to get the ball back. But then when he does get the ball back, he'll still want to keep it. That's what you thought. There you go. Hopefully we don't get Alvarez again. He's one of the I wouldn't go that as far as saying hopefully we don't get him, because I would be very excited if we did. But I think there's a better bit than I think people always like to realize how well Potts developed players. Yeah, I think so too. He wasn't the guy to take us forward though, and I will stand by that. He was never the guy to take us forward further than this, or maybe this is the only season I would have given him this season now. But yeah, I do think he's done a good job at what I wanted him to do, and I do agree with this as well. I think he did hurt a few people with how he profiled them, but again, he still kept the morale high. So I think the trade-off there was okay, as long as now Maresca is going to bring a bit more out of Cole and Enzo, but you've also got the entire morale of the squad. Everybody knows each other better. They're all integrated. They've all got used to living in London. Like, these are all factors in football that people don't really take into account, and it's quite big. So I think that year of sort of integration and development under Poch will be quite underrated. But yeah, this is the sort of manager I wanted to then take a step. Obviously, not as much pedigree, but tactically does everything you want in this squad to be done. Broja complained loads. I don't really remember him complaining loads, but he's not good enough in my like. He's one of those players I think he can probably take a massive step if he gets like fully trusted as the 9 and he gets the confidence instilled in him to just continue and persist at that level. But I don't think we can give him that. And if I was going to give those minutes to one of Jackson or Broja, you're giving them to Jackson. So it makes sense to cash in on Broja. Let's refresh the stream, see how we're doing. 33 likes. 36 watching now. If you haven't liked already, please do give it a like. Try and get it up to around 50. Hopefully. By the end. What else? Broja giving me So you think in the sense of late bloomer, progresses late and then takes that step, and then obviously teams go in for him for about the 50 million mark? Because I could see Solanke joining a few teams this summer. I think Spurs are interested. Wouldn't be surprised. Like no, not Newcastle because of Isaac, but that like he's that level. Yeah, you agree. Any possibility of Alvarez behind Jackson in a 2 striker? Not really under Maresca. He's not really a 2. Like he wants his 1 striker and his 2 wingers, but again, like this striker at times will drop deeper to almost make this shape, and then these guys are your height and width, really wide, really high. So this guy has to be able to do both. Alvarez can do both. Jackson can do both. Sesko can do both. And Nkunku can do both as well. Yeah, and again, I watched him a lot at Southampton, and his ball striking and that natural sort of striker element of him is very talented and is very good. But again, saying here with a late bloomer, and I agree with that too, that is possible because I think he needs the minutes and we can't give him those minutes. So maybe you put a buyback on him, or you put some sort of something in the deal to protect yourselves if he is a late bloomer. But yeah, I do think he's decent. There's no article. There was an Athletic article with Broja, and he mentioned Poch not letting players recover fit. Yeah, and a lot of teams do. Probably, like, it depends on their fitness sides, right? Their squads. Like, it depends. Like, a lot of different teams will have different regimes for this stuff. For their recovery, it's very different at every club. But the thing is with Poch as well is when you're playing that sort of chaotic, consistent, constant style of football, it's draining on muscles because you are constantly making high intensity sprints all over the pitch. When you're playing, I was saying this yesterday on stream, when you're playing a more conservative way and you're circulating possession, this is rest. This is your resting at this point. It's when you lose the ball, the players have to jump, right? And that's when they're exerting their energy. But a lot of the ball at the time, that's like with City and Arsenal, they keep the ball for long periods of time because one, they can't hurt you if you have the ball. They can't attack if you have got control of the ball. And two, you're resting, so they're exerting energy, you're not. That's just like a very simple thing. Like even at grassroots, you'll get told that. Keep the ball, wear them out, in simple terms. If we do get Sesko, how much do you reckon he will play? Because that could be problematic. He'd play a lot. If we got Sesko, he'd play a lot. It's not a case of just coming on against a low block, because the thing is with Sesko, he's Dovbyk maybe so. If he got a player like Dovbyk, he'd probably be. He probably would start as well. Like it'd be more rotational. I think if you ended up with Jackson and Dovbyk, you'd have quite a 50-50 split of minutes unless one of them is lighting it up. And I think they'd also like make subs a lot of the time. Like you'd get 60 minutes, like you say, 30 minutes, one comes on, Dovbyk against lower blocks, maybe, Jackson against higher defences. Sesko can do everything. So that wouldn't be in it. Like Sesko would play, he'd be the main guy eventually. Jackson may start the season for the first few games just due to being more integrated than Sesko is, because he's new. But Sesko can do everything. Sesko can come out here, like not start out here, but he starts as a striker. He can run the channel. He just because he's 6'5", he's still just a beast in general as being a he can do everything. He's so multi-talented. If you do follow me on Twitter, one of my latest tweets is a little like snippet piece about Sesko on 90 Control. If you don't follow them as well, I'm doing some analysis work with them over the summer, and me and a few others from there are doing some work. So go follow them because everything player profile wise is brilliant over there. The graphics are so clean. So definitely go drop them a follow. Because there'll be loads of content from me on there as well. What do you think is going to happen with Esteval if Olise comes? Esteval, again, he's not going to be in this season. And next season, you can, like, eventually Madueke would probably be shipped out. So it would be Olise and Madueke for now. And then when Esteval is ready to take over from that, Madueke probably leaves and it becomes Olise and Esteval. And then Olise would be at a better point in his game. Esteval would be the one sort of benefiting, coming off the bench, getting minutes, getting rotation minutes, and then he'd become the starter. So it's a progression thing. And I think the other thing to mention with all of this is, right, when you've got this level of competition, like they said about on the right, that's when it does just come down to the best players will play and the ones that aren't up to the standard will get sold. And that's why they've stocked up in these areas, because eventually it will come to a point where the decision has to be made on Madueke. So unless Madueke explodes in the next few seasons, before Esteval and Olise are ready to beat the two, if Olise is signed, then Madueke's off. So it's cutthroat at the top level. And you've seen this with City. They do it. They get everything they can out of the player. If they think they can upgrade, they move them on. Mahrez did it. Gundogan, even though maybe it was time for him to move on in his eyes, they did it with him too. This happens, and it's a cutthroat business. Laporte as well. It does happen. Zinchenko, Jesus. What would be Caicedo's role at that left eight? Does he have the capability to play the Ndidi role? Yeah, I do think so. I think if anything, he has better capability. I'm going to leave that on screen while I explain it, because I think he will excel in this role. I think he's able to get box to box. better than Enzo, for example, who I think's okay at moving laterally, not so much moving this way. Caicedo's got that ability. He can also launch the press. He can be like the pressing trigger in the sense of when he goes, everybody goes with. He is like in charge, almost what Gallagher was, and Mount when he was under Lampard and Tuchel. He was often the pressing trigger. So Caicedo offers that. He's good on the ball. He can receive between the lines because he is so technically astute. He's as well. He's also better in terms of his like attacking output than people give him credit for. Long shots, quite good. A lot of intricate passes from this area of the pitch that he's played this season into these sort of areas, like down into here. Again, he's more than enough quality to do that. And then I also think it allows Enzo to dictate. And this is another thing that people keep saying about the rest defense, right? So you got the rest defense, and people would say, if this five here is your rest defense, then we're in trouble. That's what people think. And I understand thinking that because Enzo's not as defensively stable as, say, a Caicedo or Lavia, but who would you rather from this position recovering into here? Would you rather it this way round or this way round? Because the odds are Caicedo's going to get back a lot quicker than Enzo. So then you're going to end up with all of you there rather than 5. So I think Caicedo will thrive in this role, and I think he will add a lot. Being realistic, our most technical midfielder in Enzo may struggle playing return from injury. Plan B doesn't look optimistic with us. I think if Enzo did struggle to return from injury, which I don't think he will, because I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be integrated in with Argentina. I think he'll have a whole pre-season because he's not going to the Olympics. I don't have issues with that. Worst case, Enzo isn't there. Caicedo plays this role, and this can then become Carney, for example. Or if Lavia's back, Caicedo here, Lavia there. So there's more than enough options. And Santos as well, if he stays. He's another one who can play the 6 or the 8. More so the 6, I'd say, for Santos in that sort of Enzo role. With Mudryk, do you reckon his 1v1 ability is good enough in tight spaces? Again, this could be a problem if he's not, as you have that to be that in that role. I think he's got more than enough technical ability on the ball in tight spaces and in open spaces. I think his actual ability with a football is really good. I think his confidence is shot, and that's why I think he'll be integrated slowly into this position. But when he is integrated fully and Maresca trusts him, that's when I think he'll thrive out there. But no, I do think he's got that in him. On Sanchez, I don't think he's as bad of a keeper as most think. Just worried he has a lot of those moments where he switches off. He does have a few a season, doesn't he? He had a few last season. He's the most likely, I think, to be able to sort of do this with our team more than Petrovic. And again, like I said, if you can get enough out of Sanchez, and he does make some good saves as well, if you can make sure that his short circuit passing is good, these sorts of short circuits, and he's not making too many mistakes, which I think he has got in him, then it's not the end of the world, at least for this season. Long term, obviously, there's an upgrade needed there, but it's not the end of the world. Hello, Zach. Glad to have you in the stream. What's up, Connor? Do you think Cole will be happy potentially being the starting left centre back in terms of that hybrid role? He's brilliant for it, but I'd have him starting at CC. Yeah, and I think he would be more than happy to play this role. It's actually the role he's played most in his career. Like you say, like maybe not from the left back to left centre back, but at least being a left centre back in possession. And he's played a whole season at left back, well, like half a season at left back now. So he's now got both roles sort of in his arsenal. Put him here, happy with it. I do also think I prefer him as the central centre. Like, forget Tosin, but I'd like Colwell here just because I think the passing angles that you give Colwell to control the game, I think how important he is in that area would be very, very good for the team. But I definitely think he's more than suited to keep drawing on the screen. I think he's more than suited to this role as well. Is there any player realistically you would like Chelsea to sign who has not been heavily linked? Mine is if Connor is sold and Chelsea want to sign a replacement would be Nkunku. He's too much like Enzo. I mean, he was Enzo's replacement, right? So I don't think you'd need him. And I think, again, he'd probably play higher up. He's a bit more mobile, but a bit less, like a bit worse on the ball. But again, he sort of played the attacking 8 role for me. So he wouldn't play the defensive 8 role, and he wouldn't displace this player here. So he'd be like a third choice in this area, in my opinion. Because if Palmer's not there, all of a sudden you put Nkunku there, and then you make other things happen elsewhere. Where's the Nkunku? Go and watch the stream I did yesterday. Nkunku for me is a Swiss Army knife player. That's all I'm going to say. Cisco and Olise in the team, and yeah, your question is very valid. Watch the stream I did yesterday if you want to find out more. But Swiss Army knife is what I'll say, because he can do this, he can do this, he can do this, and he can do this. So to answer that, who would I sign that hasn't been heavily linked? That's tough. Would you consider Araujo as heavily linked? Because he'd be one, I think, at the right centre back. Another one, Dovbyk. Like I said, I don't think he's been heavily linked. He's been one of my choices for that area of the pitch. Where do you see Nkunku? I think he should be starting most games. Oh, sorry, I answered that one. What do you think about starting Badiashile in that left centre back role? So it can be. Again, could happen. I don't really like the idea as much of Badiashile being there in a block, though, being the actual left back when you back off into a back four block. I don't think he's quite. I think it's probably better to have Colwell there for defending like wide areas when he's like set in defence. But it's not out of the question. But again, defence, I'm going to do a different stream for like talking more about the defence, because this was mainly meant to be around Alvarez. We've kind of gone off of Alvarez now, but just answered a few questions. Would you like to see him keep Connor, or do you think him stay and limit someone like Carney's minutes? I think Carney should be playing ahead of him as an 8 long term, but if I could keep Connor as a sub and he could come in and do the job, he could play either of these roles off the bench, and he would always come off the bench because he's that sort of player. For me, he'd be like a closer. You'd put him on for the last 30 minutes. You know exactly what you're going to get from him. Work his heart off, work his socks off. And yeah, so if you could keep him, sure, but probably not going to happen for that price. He's probably not going to sit on the bench. If he's a £50 million option, they have the option to get that money. They're not going to sit him on the bench for that. I'm going to answer this last question from Zach and Graviton. Those are the last 2 questions I'm going to answer, and then I'm going to head off for tonight. Thanks everyone for watching, by the way. Leave a like if you haven't already, whilst I just answer these last 2 questions. It'd be great to get to 50. Do you think the Olise or Sesko/Alvarez solution resolves itself first? Can't help but feel that we have our striker and winger signings done by the end of the month. Yeah, I think you see those signings before you see a left centre back and a right centre back, or like a left back, left centre back hybrid. I think those ones you'll see later towards the end of the window. Depends what happens with Calafiori, I guess. But yeah, I think Olise is the deal you see progress before anything. Sesko, we should know in the next few days who he picks. So obviously that would resolve one thing if he picks Chelsea. If not, then maybe you see us push for Alvarez. Maybe you start to see other names appear. Olise is the one I'd say is going to be pushed the heaviest in the next week. But again, Sesko could pop out of nowhere in the next 2 days, and then we know about his future. So expectations for the season. Let's end it off on this. Expectations. What would I expect from how good the squad is and how well I do think they suit? I think you can get 4th with this, in your first season with Maresca, and then push on from there. But so I'll say 4th. Expectation, I would say 4th and a Conference League final, to win it, right? But what I am going to leave it on is if we did finish 5th or 6th, for me that's fine this season, as long as I see enough progress on the pitch to suggest that the move to getting a tactical fit for this squad is working. So you start, because Poch wasn't sacked on position in the table, as I keep saying about that. I don't think he was sacked for that. He was sacked because he didn't align with the long-term fit. So even if we come 6th, but this system is working and you're seeing better out of Enzo, you're seeing better out of Colwell, you're seeing these players, I mean, Palmer's still thriving, and you're still seeing this in a better set-up team to get the best out of more players, because Poch would get the best out of someone like Gallagher, but not someone like Enzo, not someone like Colwell, for example. So that's what I'll say. I'll say 4th, but we will leave it as 5th, 6th is not the end of the world. It's okay. So on that note, we are going to end the stream there. Let me just quickly refresh. 42 likes. If you haven't liked and you're sat in the stream, please do drop one. Try and get us to 50, just so I'm about to end the stream. And then, yeah, thanks again, everyone, for joining. hopefully that's helped answer a few questions about Julian Alvarez that you wanted to know. Like I said, video is out on the transfer targets, which was uploaded today. Go drop that a like, go drop that a watch. And yes, I'll probably be streaming again. Next week, I'll have a load of streams. I've got an Enzo Fernandez video coming out, which I'm really excited about. And there'll be plenty more content. There's going to be loads of Euros content, loads of England content, and all of that stuff. So follow me on Twitter, subscribe on here. And thanks everyone for joining. Leave a like. See you guys in the next one.